ever felt like you are living a life that isn't really yours? That despite everything seeming in order, inside something is broken, suffocated, dormant. Maybe no one sees it. Maybe you can't even explain it clearly. But you feel it. A silent anguish, a discomfort that disguises itself as boredom, apathy, fatigue. And that's where the problem begins. You were taught to run away from it. They told you that a good life is a peaceful life, that suffering is a sign of failure, that feeling pain is a mistake, and you believed it. But Nietzsche would call that a lie. A comfortable, seductive lie, but one that keeps you weak. Because according to him, the true driving force of existence is not the desire for peace. It is the drive for overcoming. He called it the will to power. And pay attention. This has nothing to do with dominating others. It's about mastering yourself, about turning every defeat into strength, every fall into evolution, every pain into a tool. The truth is that if you are feeling stagnant, small, lost, maybe that's not a flaw of yours. Maybe it's just the inevitable consequence of living against your own nature. Nietzsche believed that life doesn't want comfort. It wants intensity. It wants growth. It wants confrontation. It wants you to throw yourself into the abyss of the unknown and come back stronger. This video is for you who are tired of hiding behind excuses. Who feels that there is something inside you begging to awaken? Who has already understood, even without knowing how to explain, that following the common path won't lead you to anywhere extraordinary. It's time to confront what you have been avoiding your whole life, your own potential. You are about to enter dangerous territory, because once you understand what the will to power is, there's no turning back. Ignorance stops being comfortable. Passivity becomes unbearable. And you start to see clearly all the subtle ways society has taught you to be less than you are. But if you have the courage, this could be the first step to becoming someone you didn't even know was possible to be. Nietzsche said that, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." The question remains, are you ready to stop surviving and finally start living? Nietzsche did not write to please. He wrote to awaken. His words were like hammers, not for decoration, but to destroy illusions. And one of the greatest illusions he tried to break was the idea that human beings seek, above all, happiness. According to him, this is a lie sold by religions, political systems, and a decadent morality that turns us into domesticated, obedient, and weak creatures. Human beings, Nietzsche said, do not desire to be happy. They desire to be strong. They want to grow, transcend, overcome. And this is exactly what he called the will to power, an invisible, instinctive, pulsating force that exists within every living being, a primordial energy that seeks not stability, but expansion, that does not want rest, but intensity. The will to power is the very essence of life, pushing you forward, upward, beyond. But beware, the will to power is not about conquering the external world. It is about conquering your internal world. It is you against you. It is every decision that challenges your fear, every choice that demands courage, every time you look in the mirror and decide not to settle for what you see. It is when you stop asking for permission to exist and start asserting yourself as the creator of your own path. Nietzsche saw this will as the true foundation of existence, but it does not walk alone. It is accompanied by other concepts that form the backbone of his philosophy, and that together compose a true architecture of overcoming. The revaluation of values, for example, is the process of destroying inherited moral values, those that preach submission, humility, guilt, and creating new values based on strength, vitality, and affirmation of life. Nietzsche said, "God is dead." And what does that mean? That absolute truths, dogmas, the systems that dictated right and wrong have collapsed. And And now, it is up to you to decide who you want to be in this world without crutches. Another pillar is eternal recurrence. The idea that you should live in such a way that you would accept repeating this same life, with all its mistakes and pains, for all eternity. A brutal test of authenticity. A silent question that demands an honest answer. If you had to live this life exactly as it is, infinitely, would you accept it? Or would you despair? And finally, there is the overman. The Nietzschean ideal of one who breaks with mediocrity, with the herd mentality, and rises as the creator of oneself. He does not follow the world. He shapes the world. He does not ask for meaning in life. He gives meaning to life. All these concepts orbit around the will to power. They are born from it, feed on it, and return to it. Because deep down, everything in Nietzsche revolves around a single demand: become more than you are. And this is not a suggestion. It is an existential call. But what happens when someone tries to follow this path? What does life demand from those who truly decide to grow? This is where we enter the most difficult and transformative territory of all: suffering. Because there is no overcoming without pain. And Nietzsche knew this better than anyone. In the next part, we will talk about what pain really means, and why perhaps it is not an obstacle, but the fuel for your transformation. Do you want to evolve? Do you want to be someone stronger, freer, more aware? Then prepare to bleed. Because, contrary to what modern society tries to convince you, suffering is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Pain is not a mistake on the journey. It is the very path. And Nietzsche knew this like few others. He lived pain in his flesh, chronic illnesses, social isolation, intellectual rejection. And yet, or precisely because of this, he wrote some of the most powerful ideas in Western philosophy. Because he understood what almost no one has the courage to accept. Suffering is the price of transformation. We live in a world that idolizes pleasure and demonizes pain. Everything revolves around comfort, distraction, and anesthesia. We are constantly being taught to avoid discomfort. But Nietzsche saw pain as an alchemical process, something that, when faced with courage, does not destroy you. It refines you. He said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." This phrase is not cheap poetry. It is a brutal sentence about the reality of the human soul. True strength is born from rupture. Legitimate courage is born from overcome fear. Real clarity comes after a collapse. Want examples? Think of when you finally set boundaries after being crushed by someone, when you rebuilt yourself after a loss that seemed unbearable, or when you decided you no longer wanted to be the same, even if it meant losing everything. You did not grow despite the pain. You grew because of it. Nietzsche saw suffering as the battlefield of the will to power. It is there that you discover who you really are. Because while everything is going well, anyone can seem strong. But when life tears at your flesh, when everything you know crumbles, when you are left alone with your own demons, that is when you have the chance to become something the world will never be able to control. And that is precisely why so many avoid this process, because growing requires killing the weak version of yourself, and no one comes out unscathed from such a funeral. Many prefer to stay small, because it is easier to blame the world than to face their own reflection. Easier to hide behind distractions than to confront pain with open eyes. But here is the truth. All untransformed pain repeats itself. Ignored suffering recycles itself, and you keep returning to the same place, with the same wounds, complaining about the same things. Nietzsche invites us to do the opposite, to transform suffering into strength, like a warrior who does not flee from battle, but who smiles when he sees the enemy approaching, because he knows that is where he becomes most lethal. So, if pain is inevitable, question you need to ask is not, how do I escape this, but rather, how do I use this to grow? This is the true Nietzschean philosophy, not an escape from pain, but a dance with it. And if you have understood this so far, you may have already noticed a pattern. Most live dodging what would make them stronger. The will to power exists within everyone, but few have the courage to embody it. Why? In the next part, we will confront this question head-on. Why are so many people trapped in weak versions of themselves? Be honest. How many times have you felt that you could be more than you are, but some invisible force pulled you back into the same routine, the same fears, the same habits that keep you small? How many times have you had an impulse for change, a flash of courage, a genuine desire to break free from everything? But in the end, you remained exactly where you were. The truth is brutal. You are stuck. And worse, you may not even know it. Nietzsche would call this decadence, a state of mind where life weakens from within. It is not visible in the eyes of those looking from the outside. Often you have a career, a relationship, friends, hobbies, but inside you are paralyzed, dead in motion. Because being functional is not the same as being alive. Truly living requires strength, and strength requires confrontation. But what does most people do? They adapt, they settle, they accept the rules, the roles, the masks, all in the name of peace. But the peace sold by the modern world is anesthesia, not fullness. It teaches you to survive, not to live. You learn to avoid conflict, to avoid pain, to avoid exposure. You learn to please others, to appear good, to be kind even when your spirit is screaming for change. And the result of this? A domesticated soul, a withered spirit, a human being who could be a thunder but chose to be a whisper. Nietzsche had no patience for this kind of existence. He saw it as surrender, as a betrayal against one's own nature, because within you exists a power that is being sabotaged daily by your excuses, by your inherited beliefs, by your cowardice disguised as prudence. Every time you remain silent when you should take a stand, you weaken yourself. Every time you choose what is comfortable instead of what is necessary, you drift away from your greatness. Every time you settle for less than you deserve, you are telling the universe, I accept being small. And here is the cruelest point. No one is coming to rescue you from this. There is no savior, there is no master, there is no government, partner, guru, or magic formula. Liberation does not come from outside. It is born from the non-negotiable decision to break with the weak version of yourself. That version that lives to please, that flees from pain, that fears judgment, that needs approval to feel alive. That version needs to die. Because as long as it exists, your power will be in captivity. But breaking free from this prison is not simple. Because it is not made of visible bars. It is made of ideas, of beliefs, of stories you tell yourself about who you are. And you believe these stories so much that you don't even realize you are trapped within them. Self-sabotage, for Nietzsche, is a vice of weak souls. People who are afraid of their own freedom. Do you want to live the will to power? Then start breaking these invisible chains. Face the fear of making mistakes, of failing, of disappointing others. Because the more you try to protect yourself, the further you drift from your truth. Nietzsche believed that a human being only fully realizes themselves when they risk being misunderstood, hated, rejected, all in the name of something greater, becoming who they truly are. But this leads us to an inevitable question. What does it mean, in practice, to surpass oneself? What is this process of transformation, this journey of confrontation with oneself? How does the true inner strength of those who dare to break with everything manifest? Next, we will dive into the central idea of Nietzschean philosophy, surpassing oneself as the purest form of power. and understand why only those who face their own abyss can touch true greatness. Most people live trying to conquer the world. They compete for status, for likes, for higher salaries, for more admired bodies. They struggle to prove something to others, as if external validation were the definitive seal of their own worth. But Nietzsche taught us something that destroys this superficial logic. True power is not about defeating others. It is about defeating oneself. And that is infinitely more difficult. Because overcoming others can be a matter of skill. But overcoming oneself requires courage. Courage to face your own vices, your mediocrity, your procrastination, your lies, your pride disguised as humility. It is a silent, invisible, solitary war, fought every day within your mind. And most give up before they even start. Nietzsche saw life as an eternal process of self-overcoming. He believed that the human being is not a fixed essence, but a becoming, a flow in constant transformation, and that the only life worth living is one where you reinvent yourself, destroy yourself, rebuild yourself, like an artist shaping themselves into a masterpiece. But here's the detail no one tells you. Self-overcoming hurts, because it requires you to betray the version of yourself that brought you here. That version that learned to survive, to protect itself, to avoid conflict, to hide. This version may have saved you at some point, but now it limits you. And to become someone new, you will have to kill it. Nietzsche had no romantic illusions about this process. He knew that growth is not a straight line. It is a spiral of ups and downs, of progress and setbacks, of days when you feel invincible and nights when everything seems to crumble. But it is precisely in this chaos that power is born. Because real power is not in never falling. It is in rising as a stronger version than the one that fell. Overcoming oneself means challenging that part of you that wishes to remain the same. It is saying no to old excuses. It is breaking patterns repeated for years. It is looking at yourself with brutal honesty and admitting, I can do more, and I am tired of sabotaging myself. It is understanding that the suffering of change is preferable to the comfort of stagnation. Nietzsche presents us with the figure of the overman, the being who breaks with the herd morality, who abandons the need for approval, who does not seek to be accepted, but to be authentic. And to get there, he must walk alone. He must leave behind the shackles of inherited identity and forge a new existence, not as a product of the environment, but as a creator of meaning. The true measure of power, then, is the ability to be reborn, to abandon the shell of who you were, even if it hurts, even if it scares you, even if it leaves you in ruins for a time. Because only from the rubble can something truly new emerge. But of course, Nietzsche did not write for comfort. He wrote for fire. And this process of self-overcoming does not happen in an ideal world. It happens here, now, in this superficial, hedonistic, distracted world, where everything conspires for you to remain weak, numb, and mediocre. And that is why, in the next part, we will talk about the greatest challenge of all: how to live the will to power in a world that does everything to weaken you. How to sustain this philosophy of strength in a time that venerates comfort, conformity, and the lie disguised as well-being. If you are ready for this confrontation, stay with me. Try to live intensely today, and you will be called crazy. Try to be authentic, and you will be judged as selfish. Try to grow, and you will be accused of arrogance. This is the paradox of our time. The world preaches freedom, but rewards obedience. It encourages self-expression, but punishes those who deviate from the script. It stimulates the desire for change, but delivers daily doses of dopamine to keep you exactly where you are. And Nietzsche, if he were alive now, would probably spit on the ground and say, "You are being domesticated like herd animals." We live in a society shaped to produce comfort and avoid confrontation. Technology does everything for you. The wellness culture anesthetizes the soul. Social media offers instant validation, so you never have to face your own emptiness. Everything is designed so you never question anything, so you consume, smile, accept, and shut up. But the will to power does not survive in this environment. It dies, suffocated. Do you want to live as Nietzsche proposed? Then understand this. You will have to be the odd one out, the displaced, the one who disturbs, the one who refuses to repeat cliches, the one who prefers the pain of truth to the peace of ignorance. Because living the will to power today means swimming against everything, against the victim mentality, against the cult of easy pleasure, against the chronic fear of judgment. It means being a living threat to the value system that preaches that it is better to be accepted than to be free. And freedom, in this context, is something radical. Being free today is not doing what you want. It is having the strength to do what needs to be done, even when no one else understands. It is having enough clarity to see the manipulation behind entertainment, advertising, the positive language that hides cowardice and conformity. True freedom requires you to see. And once you see, you can no longer pretend you didn't. The will to power demands that you take command, that you stop asking what others think and start asking what you need to become. It means living with purpose in a time that idolizes distractions. It means saying no firmly when everything around you begs you to give in. It means choosing to be hated for your truth rather than loved for your edited version. And this is not a metaphor. It is a battlefield. You will lose people. You will be ridiculed. You will be misunderstood. But in return, you will gain something priceless: integrity, strength, clarity, presence. You will walk with a firm spirit, an awakened conscience, and an untamed soul. You will look in the mirror and recognize someone who has not sold out. Nietzsche did not want followers. He wanted arsonists, people willing to set fire to their own lies. And living the will to power is that. It is transforming your own life into an act of creation, into a work in eternal construction, into a violent affirmation of your own existence. But this brings us to a final point, and perhaps the most important. If you have the courage to live all of this, day after day, do you know what will happen? You will become someone who no longer recognizes their old self. You will look back and see another you, fragile, insecure, conditioned, and understand that they had to die for you to be born. And that is what we will talk about now. In the last part, we will close this dive with a direct, inescapable, definitive question. Will you choose strength or comfort? Now that we have come this far, the question can no longer be ignored. What kind of life will you choose to live? The one of comfort, predictability, and self-deception, or the one of strength, transformation, and the raw, violent authenticity that Nietzsche called the affirmation of life? Because one thing is certain, you cannot have both. Comfort offers you a tranquil but empty existence. It whispers in your ear every day, stay where you are, don't question, don't risk, don't expose yourself. And you listen, because it's easier, more convenient, more socially acceptable. But deep down, you know you are betraying something within yourself. You know you are slowly fading away. You know that if you continue like this, you will reach the end of life without ever having truly lived. Strength, on the other hand, is brutal. It demands sacrifice. It demands discipline. It requires you to bury old versions of yourself. To break away from inherited ideas, automatic patterns, and comfort zones that resemble decorated prisons. Strength does not promise easy rewards, but it offers something that comfort can never give: meaning. Nietzsche believed that life only has value when it is lived as a work in constant overcoming, when each fall becomes the foundation for something greater, when suffering is not avoided but used as fuel, when you stop seeking approval and start becoming someone the world cannot ignore. Are you willing to do that? This is a question no one can answer for you. But know one thing: if you felt something different while listening to all this, if something within you stirred, rebelled, ignited, then perhaps the will to power is already trying to awaken, and it will not let you rest until you choose. Either you will bury yourself in comfort like so many others, or you will rise with the strength of someone who refuses to be just another. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment below. What within you needs to die so that you can be reborn? Be honest. This space is for those who are not afraid to face their own shadow. And if this video provoked you, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth, even if it hurts. And don't forget, the next video is just as important as this one. Transformation requires continuity, and I will be here with you, step by step, word by word. See you there.